breaking news. A federal judge just ruled the Trump administration must immediately reinstate thousands of probationary employees who were fired last month from a half-dozen federal agencies.
Trump administration rocked to its core. A federal judge's stunning ruling ignites a firestorm of controversy, sending shockwaves throughout the nation. Thousands of federal workers reinstated, and the White House is left reeling in shock, scrambling to respond. The fallout is just beginning, and the consequences are still unfolding. Background of the case. The case involves thousands of probationary government employees who were terminated from various federal agencies, including the Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Agriculture, and Department of Defense. But what led to these mass firings? It all started with Executive Order 13,839, signed by President Trump in May 2020. The order aimed to streamline the federal hiring process and make it easier to fire employees deemed unfit for their roles. However, critics argued that this was a thinly veiled attempt to slash the federal workforce and undermine the civil service system. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, the largest federal employee union, sounded the alarm, warning that the executive order would lead to widespread firings and undermine the integrity of the federal workforce. Fast forward to last month, when the Trump administration issued a memo directing federal agencies to reevaluate their workforce and identify employees who were deemed unfit for their roles. The memo claimed that this was necessary to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the federal government. However, the firings that followed seemed to target specific groups of employees, including those with disabilities, African Americans, and Hispanics. The AFGE filed a lawsuit challenging the firings, arguing that they were discriminatory and violated federal labor laws. The judge's ruling. 2 U.S. judges have ordered several federal government agencies to reinstate the jobs of probationary employees fired en masse by the Trump administration last month. In California, District Judge William Alsup called the sacking of these employees part of a sham strategy that aimed to circumvent proper procedures for reducing the federal workforce. His order, which was followed by another from Maryland, applies to thousands of probationary workers who were fired at a range of departments, including Defense, Energy, Treasury, and Veterans Affairs. The Department of Justice says the firings were done based on guidance, rather than a directive, from the Office of Personnel Management, OPM. The BBC has contacted OPM for comment. OPM, a once obscure agency that manages the federal government's civil service, has been thrust into the spotlight amid President Donald Trump's moves to slash the size of the federal workforce. In Thursday's hearing in San Francisco, California, Judge Alsup countered the DOJ lawyers' arguments from the bench, citing evidence including termination letters that stated the firings were carried out on OPM's instructions. That should not have been done in our country, Judge Alsup said. It was a sham in order to avoid statutory requirements. Danielle Leonard, a lawyer representing a coalition of government employee unions, said probationary employees were targeted because they lacked the right to appeal. During the hearing, Judge Alsup also lamented the firing of a government worker in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who had been given top marks for performance, but was then issued a pink slip citing performance as the cause of their termination. Judge Alsup said, "I just want to say it is a sad day when our government would fire a good employee and say it's for performance when they know good and well that's a lie." Judge Alsup's order was followed by a similar ruling from Baltimore, Maryland, by District Judge James Breder, who agreed that Trump's team had broken regulations and cast doubt on the idea that the workers had been individually sacked for unsatisfactory performances.
Federal workers fired, and now a protest in D.C. as we learn more about the real-life impact, especially at the Department of Health and Human Services. At the CDC, nearly 1,300 probationary employees are being forced to quit. More than a dozen staff cuts could impact the World Trade Center health program, potentially putting the health of September 11th first responders at risk.
Responding to the first ruling, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt accused Judge Alsup of single-handedly attempting to unconstitutionally seize the power of hiring and firing from the executive branch. She said that power rested with the president and singular district court judges cannot abuse the power of the entire judiciary to thwart the president's agenda. The Trump administration will immediately fight back against this absurd and unconstitutional order.
Employees are actually working in the office. By one estimate, it may be about 1% if you don't count the security personnel that are covering these buildings. That is absurd. The overriding theme here is a return to common sense.
Elon Musk's name was not mentioned during the California hearing, but he has been tasked by President Trump with downsizing the federal workforce through the Ad Hoc Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Elon Musk has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Elon Musk has got to go.
The administration had said in workers' termination notices that they were being fired for performance reasons, despite many saying they had received nothing but stellar reviews. The judges on Thursday made clear that the government's justification for eliminating them was a lie. Impact of the ruling. The judge's decision has sent shockwaves throughout the Trump administration, which is vehemently opposing the ruling. The administration is arguing that the ruling undermines its authority to manage the federal workforce. The ruling has blocked the administration's efforts to restructure the federal workforce, at least for now. The administration's credibility has taken a hit, with critics arguing that it overstepped its authority. The ruling may embolden other federal judges to block the administration's policies. Thousands of federal workers who were terminated will be reinstated, with all benefits restored. The ruling has provided a sense of relief and vindication for federal workers who were unfairly terminated. The ruling may also lead to changes in the way the federal government manages its workforce. The ruling highlights the importance of checks and balances in our system of government. The ruling may have implications for other cases involving the Trump administration's policies. The ruling underscores the need for transparency and accountability in government decision-making. Some probationary employees are receiving other positive signs they could get their jobs back. Probationary workers at the Department of Agriculture began receiving back pay Wednesday from their date of termination after the Merit Systems Protection Board issued a 45-day stay on their firing. The department will work quickly to develop a phased plan for return to duty, and while those plans materialize, all probationary employees will be paid, a department notice said. The Trump administration is likely to appeal the ruling, but for now, the decision is a major setback for its efforts to restructure the federal workforce. On Friday, there was no indication from federal agencies that they would immediately comply with the court decisions. The White House signaled that the administration is in no rush to re-employ these workers. A single judge is attempting to unconstitutionally seize the power of hiring and firing from the executive branch, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in a statement. The president has the authority to exercise the power of the entire executive branch. Singular district court judges cannot abuse the power of the entire judiciary to thwart the president's agenda. If a federal district court judge would like executive powers, they can try and run for president themselves. The Trump administration will immediately fight back against this absurd and unconstitutional order. The Office of Personnel Management, which oversees the civil service, had no comment and pointed to Leavitt's statement. Elon Musk's influence on the Trump administration's decisions, particularly regarding the mass layoffs of federal workers, is significant. Musk and his team initiated sweeping changes, including terminating thousands of government workers and eliminating hundreds of federal contracts.